How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Chatted Up Sports Network. My name is Rami. That's my friend T. And today we're going to talk a little bit about fantasy football drafting. We're going to try to give you guys a couple tips that might help you out along the way, depending on what kind of league you're in. We are in a keeper IDP league, and that's of the utmost complexity, and so we know what we're talking about. I'm going to start with offense. Today in the NFL, it seems like it's all a passing-based league. So I would suggest when you're drafting, I would go receiver heavy, because a lot of leagues will allow one running back and two or three receivers, or two running backs, two receivers, one running back, three receivers, depending on the format that you're set up. Some will allow a flex. It really just depends on the league. But with it being so receiver heavy and it being so competitive in receivers, I would always suggest getting that receiver first if you could. Now, if you can get a dominant running back, a guy like maybe MJD or maybe like someone at the top, I would suggest getting him first. But if you're in that 7 through 15 running back zone, I would go ahead and get that receiver. I would get like the Calvin Johnson. I would get possibly like a Wes Welker. I would get someone like that, because you're going to start probably one running back and then probably a couple more receivers in that. Now, you can get your quarterback maybe in the second or third round if you want, if you're not getting an elite quarterback. Because if you don't get one of the top three quarterbacks, there's really no point in getting, one of the 3 through 7 guys. So if it was up to me, the kind of way I would do it would be like receiver, quarterback, running back, receiver, or you could go running back, receiver, quarterback, receiver. But either way, out of your first 4 picks on offense, I would suggest 2 receivers, 1 quarterback, 1 running back. If you're in a every season type league, that's not a keeper league. Excuse me. Those are a few offensive tips. T, give me a few defensive tips that you think the people could use.
All right, on defense, obviously if you're playing in a league with the total overall defense, it's not IDP. You kind of want to look for, just do your research. Teams that run aggressive schemes, a lot of sacks, picks. Another thing to pay attention to is punt returns. That's also defensive points. Depending on whether you get punt return yards, you should get the touchdown. So also, be aware of that. In IDP leagues, your first player drafted at any position, if you're going to go defense, is linebacker. Target the top guys. But with that being said, in overall IDP, there's a lot of sleepers. There's an abundance of sleepers since there's so many players that don't get drafted. And sometimes you can wait, if you can't pick up on a Patrick Willis or a DeQuell Jackson or, one of the top safeties like George Wilson or, one of the top defensive linemen, do your research, look at past year stats. There's plenty of guys laying around that are gems. I happened to pick up a bunch of guys off the waiver wire last year that produced as number ones at their position. So it's all about doing the research. Trends usually uphold in the NFL with defensive players. If they're consistently getting tackles, that's gonna, that's gonna work for you week in and week out. So
where would you say on average? Let me ask you real quick. Where would you say on average where someone you think should start drafting defensive players in a draft?
Depends on how many rounds you're going. I would start going, after the top 10 or so are gone at the offensive position. I would go, as early as round 10. It all depends on how many people are in your league. Because points are points. A lot of those guys, depending on how your points lay out, a lot of those guys are right up there with the top offensive guys, in terms of their stats. So, you can go middle round, not middle round, but probably like from 10 on. I would. You could see your first linebacker or safety go.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to really figure out where to get them, because the truth of the matter is, like you said, there are so many guys that have value in free agency after the draft. I mean, it just seems like on defense, guys are popping up throughout the season, and then they just maintain some productivity even after the draft. I mean, there's just all these guys in free agency you can get, so it's kind of hard to get yourself to pick a guy, with your first 5 through 10 picks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So we would suggest probably waiting towards the later rounds, get a couple of defensive stars, and then pick up most of the guys in free agency before week 1 or after week 1. Start a couple of guys. It doesn't really matter. It's the offensive guys that are hard to decipher and get the value from. The defensive guys are nothing but productive, it seems like. I think T gave some great advice on defense. I hope you guys could use some of the advice I gave you on offense. And we'll be doing a couple more shows letting you guys know a couple of tips you might be able to use. We're going to ask the fans, what's your draft strategy? T, good show, my man. I'll see you around.
Always. Always.
Always.